I kind of like the days where I would listen to the radio with a cassette recorder, trying to record my favorite song, with a boombox to hit play and record when that new song came on that I wanted. There's some magic to that. Nowadays, a kid wants to hear a song, they can hear it immediately on their phone. They don't even have, they don't even have to own it. They can just hear it. And there was some magic, I think, to that, to waiting all day for your favorite song to be on the radio. I love that.
Dave Chandler, are they going to know you by that name?
In Northern Kentucky, yeah. More of them are gonna know me by my
Big Dave.
By Big Dave, yeah.
We always talk about welcome. Thanks for stopping in.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
We're pumped for bringing all the experts behind the mic in. So we got to be on our A game today. It's like, man, he's going to find all the nuance of what we're not doing well.
A solid B will be fine.
Okay, solid B.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to adjust that. That doesn't work well with my brain. But solid B, okay. We when there's experts coming in, whether they come from the news or where they're coming from the space of could be a musician, someone that's used to be recording, we're like, all right, we gotta get on the A game and what's going on. And you've been doing this thing for quite a while.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've been in media, radio, and I started off at a radio TV station in Tennessee. So yeah. It was my small hometown, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is outside. It's not really that small anymore. Outside of Nashville, where Middle Tennessee State University is. Mm-hmm. My father was a teacher there, so we moved from West Tennessee to Middle Tennessee when I was 4, I think. And all my schooling was in Murfreesboro. Kindergarten, I graduated from MTSU. So
we heard schooling. It's still in there.
Oh, yeah, all Southern. I did talk myself out of the Southern accent a little bit. I tried because I knew I wanted to be in broadcasting. I was like, even in the South, you don't have people on the air talking like this, unless it's hee-haw or something. Even people in the South, you want a nondescript accent, or a non-regional.
Don't know where you're from.
Yeah, mine still comes out. I can't help it, but I used to drive around. Nowadays, it's great. You can drive around in your car and talk to yourself, and everybody just thinks you're on a phone call. But back when I was like in college in the 80s, you look like a nut, driving around talking to yourself. You're like, hey, why is that? So in Tennessee, before every movie, they had a thing they would show. They probably showed it here. It was to remind you of the emergency exits and in case of a fire and all that stuff. They don't do that in movies anymore, but they did back then.
What years are we talking here? Are we going to start dating ourselves on this? Well, there's a younger audience out here now, Dave, right?
I had seen this since I was a kid, going to the movies in the 70s and in high school in the 80s and college. So they would come on, and if you like, I would recite this because the guy had that big radio voice. So I would just practice this while I drove around, and the guy, I'll do the voice. He would go, the management of this theater, in cooperation with the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's Office, requests you take a moment to look around the theater and familiarize yourself with all emergency exits, the aisleways in which you entered, and the passageways designated by the illuminated emergency exit signs visible to you at either the left or right of the forward section have been checked and are clear exits from the building in the event of an emergency. Boom. And I knew that from years of going to movies all the time.
How many movies did you see?
Dude, just over the course, I just have that kind of mind too. So I would just practice that and try to do that voice and talk that Southern accent out just a little bit. So
you talked it out. Good job. So were you born with a radio voice?
No. That's like I said.
But we talked hee-haw. But on hee-haw, you could have made hee-haw in the beginning.
Dude, I used to watch hee-haw every Saturday night with my parents. And my dad would get out the Methodist hymnal book and sing, because sometimes they do hymns on there and sing along. So I grew up watching hee-haw and stuff like that. And of course, Murfreesboro is only like 25 miles out of Nashville, so it's basically a suburb of Nashville. And country music was bombarding you from an early age.
So did you just happen upon broadcasting?
Well, I have initially I wanted to be a commercial artist. My uncle was that, rest his soul, but he was a very good and successful commercial artist, and I have a talent for drawing and things. So I always loved radio, but when you're a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, of course you love radio. I wanted to do that, but then when I did my first semester at MTSU as a commercial art major, and I was like, I found out that I did not like to do it when I had to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like,
most kids.
yeah, this isn't the career for me. So the next semester, I became a radio and television major.
Did you have any idea the journey that you would travel then?
I did not. As a kid, I mean, I look back at it. There was a station in Nashville, WKDF. It was the rock station, the Heritage Rock Station of Nashville. And of course, as a kid, I grew up listening to that because at the time, country was just rammed down your throat so much, being that close to Nashville, that you kind of wanted to get away from that. So eventually, by the time I was 28, I was doing the morning show there, which was kind of crazy. But I mean, that was my dream. I grew up, there was a guy on there, Carl P. Mayfield, the P Team, and I idolized him, and he moved on actually to go to a country station in town eventually. But if I'd have thought when I was a high schooler listening to him that I'd one day be sitting in that chair instead of him, I would.
At 28.
At 28 years old. Yeah.
What do you do when you achieve your dream at 28 then?
I don't know. I don't think at the time I realized that, because you're 28, and I know people watching this, they're like, I'm 28 and I'm old. No, you're not. You still don't really realize things, I don't think, until you hit 30, And now I look back at it and I'm like, well, that was pretty damn cool. I mean, I was only, not even 10 years, hardly 10 years out of high school when I idolized that station, and then there I am.
So what do you do then? Like, what happened? Can you go back and think about the 28-year-old Dave and think about, is he a guy that wanted to keep going, that wanted to get better, that wanted to do more?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was happy there. I don't think I was that goal-oriented, because I felt, like I said, just not to contradict myself, but I had reached what I thought was the pinnacle at that point. So I had no interest in market jumping and all that stuff, because there's people that I call them nomadic DJs at the time. They would go to market 45. All right, now I want to be at market in the side of the 20s. That never interested me.
Was it trying to level up all the time?
Always leveling up, yeah. And I wasn't interested in that. I'm not a big fan of moving around. So I've lived here in Middle Tennessee pretty much my whole my life.
We can track most of those characteristics back as like a child who impacted and who affected us. So you're loyal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, loyal, I guess, and just, I don't want to say complacent, but I'm always content with what I'm doing, because I don't know if that makes me sound bad or not.
But you're not content with like people that listen to you on the radio, and like you've been in all different segments, right? Morning shows, afternoon, you've been on at night. Mm-hmm. People like listening to you. And so we don't really know each other that well. We met once or twice, right? But just if everybody, you walk around Cincinnati and you're like, Big Dave from B105.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard you. And so you do a good job. If not, you don't stay this long.
You don't stay, yeah. I do have the voice is very recognizable, and this happens a lot. I never go out and go, hey, I'm big. I don't do that, because a lot of times I don't have to. It happened this morning. I always tell when it happens. I was at a store, and when they asked me what I needed, and I said it, one of the guys on the other register went like that, and I just know, maybe he didn't get it right then, but he's like, I know that voice,
But isn't that how we're supposed to live life? Like if we were talking about, boy, here we go, talking about business, talking about growth, and talking about life and mindset and evolution, but you said, hey, I don't have to go out and tell people. And that's not arrogant. That's the way you're supposed to live life.
Yeah. I
do such a good job, make such an impact that you don't have to sell your thing.
Exactly. I enjoy being recognized and people coming up, and that's always great. I don't mind that at all. But it's also nice when it's not happening, and I can just be Dave instead of Big Dave. That's, sometimes that gets a little, because you feel like you got to, I better be on, or whatever. So
you feel the pressure of that at times?
A little bit, yeah, sometimes. But that's don't get me wrong. I enjoy. If it wasn't for the people that recognize you and listen every day, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. Where you referenced the P team.
Yeah.
Where do we come up with these crazy ass names?
Well,
What happens?
He was Carl P. Mayfield. That was his name.
I mean, is that what happens in Tennessee? You don't come up with anything creative?
Yeah, well, that was, at the time, I was like, oh, the P team, I mean, it was childish, but it was a rock station,
Yeah.
so that's what it was.
But how in the business that you're in, how do they come up with like the so-and-so from 3 to 6 or this? It's not just the person. Like when you've been on with you and Statman, where's this stuff come from?
It's just, you mean just like
It's nicknames and you're walking through the hall one day and somebody throws out a name like, that's a good show name.
Well, I mean, for me, I got the nickname Big Dave when I was in college because I was in a fraternity, Sigma Chi, and there was quite a few Daves in there, and I guess I was the biggest one of the Daves. So,
but you're a guy that said you didn't like buying your friends.
But like what?
Well, you said you were in a fraternity. I thought you didn't like to have to.
Oh, buy your. Oh, stop that. Yeah. Hey, we were the almost like the non-fraternity of the fraternities. I mean, as far as the typical fraternity thing went, that's what drew me to it. Actually, that chapter.
Were y'all hunting and fishing? What were y'all doing?
Oh, just no. I mean, although there was a dead deer in our living room one morning when I woke up that somebody had set in a chair with one of those caps that has a straw coming down. It was part of a prank war with a chapter at Austin P. You'll like that. Have you ever heard of Austin P?
Yeah.
In Clarksville? They were a Sigma Chi chapter there. They had a picture of John Wayne. He was a Sigma Chi. It was an autographed picture of John Wayne. Was like their pride and joy on the mantle in the center. And a couple of our brothers had been up there and had taken it. So some more of them came back in the middle of the night to get it. And on the way, they saw a deer that had been hit. So they picked it up, put it in a truck, and set it up in a chair with its legs crossed in our living room in the middle of the night. And we came down the next morning, and that deer was sitting there with a ball cap with the can holders. And yeah.
Did the escalation stop right there?
That you don't beat that. I mean, come on. That's one thing I've learned. You learn when to tap out and don't try to top or one up because you can't. There's nothing you could have done to one up that.
That's an intelligence in life because there's a lot of people that don't know when that moment is.
Exactly.
Right?
That's one of the things they tell you in radio that bosses have told me and everybody that'll listen over the years is you always take the first exit. You don't continue to. I think there's a funny George Costanza bit on Seinfeld where Jerry told him that, and at a meeting he made the whole room laugh, and then just got up and left the meeting. Because he's like, that's it, I'm out. That's the way to do it in radio, television, or anything. Just don't keep trying because chances are, if you busted up the room, what you have to say after that is only going to diminish that first big laugh you got.
Can a stand-up comic do the same thing? Walk out and make one good joke and leave?
No, they can't do that because they don't have anything else to go to. In radio, there's always traffic.
So is that what's happening when you all go to traffic?
Boing, no, you just feel, all right, that was a good moment. I'm going to hit the traffic bed. It's a transition. And then you go on and move on,
When you guys go into, you've been doing this so long. What's the segment you're in right now? Is it in the evening?
Yeah, 3 to 7.
Okay. So I'm assuming it might be tough to keep yourself from falling into complacency because you've been doing it so long.
Yeah, but you don't want to get complacent, but you also, one of my theories is anywhere, whatever time slot you're in, talk about what's relevant to the listener and don't try to drag the listener. You go to that. Don't try to drag the listener to what you think they think should be relevant. History is littered with talk shows and radio hosts that tried to do that, and it's hard. I mean, unless it's something really compelling, if it's like here in Cincinnati, it's a layup. Right now, it's Lent. What did you give up for Lent? You'll get some great calls on that. Just do that. And let people. My philosophy is I don't have to be the funniest one in the room. I want other people to be funny. I want the callers. You're going to get gold out of callers. Things you never thought of.
Let them dig their ditch.
Let them do it. Yeah, let them have their moment too. I love having people call into the show.
What's the best one you've heard about what they've given up for Lent so far? Have you been doing that this week?
Well, I did it yesterday. Yesterday was because it was Fat Tuesday, and today's Ash Wednesday, obviously. I I was asking people, what are you indulging on today that you're about to give up tomorrow for 40 days? And I thought that was a different way of asking it because, oh, yeah, well, and then I got some great calls. This one lady called in and said they're giving up fast food. So she was having Skyline with the Skyway extra cheese on it. And then another kid called in and said he's eating Oreos a lot because he's giving up Oreos for Lent because that's his go-to snack.
And you just let it be.
I just let them ride. Yeah. And then, you poke them a little bit and have fun with it. But I mean, sure. It's just, and one guy called in and said he's giving up beer.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. And I told him at the end, hey, if you make it, I'll buy the next rounds on me. And he's like, I'm in Covington. And he knew that's the great thing. He was, you're in Fort Mitchell, right? I said, yeah. I said, yep, we'll hit the bar and stumble home together. There we go.
What do you go without getting into a place where you can fall into complacency? Where I was wanting to go here to get into a guy's brain who's really good at this and done it for a long time. Do you go into a show with a plan every time? Is the 4 hours planned out?
You want to have a plan because you also have what you call benchmarks. You have things that hit at the same time every day. But you want to have a plan, but you also don't want to be a slave to sticking to it because you got to fill the room, and go, all right, well, this is taken over. And just let it ride. I mean, a perfect example of that, this is when I was in the mornings, is roughly a little over a year ago, we got up to the news that Toby Keith had passed away. So, obviously we're going to do a lot of focus on that. So other things were already getting pushed aside that we had planned. But then you just could feel it that people wanted to share their stories about Toby calling in because he'd, been to Cincinnati, over 24 times probably in his career in concert. And everybody had a story they wanted to share or just say something, or because he was very, with the military aspect of Toby Keith, families like that, people that saw him, that were serving and saw him overseas and things like that. So that was it. We let the show that took it over. Nothing else. We didn't,
Do you have that conversation off mic by looking at the producers? Are you at such a comfortable level there's nonverbals happening all the time?
Yeah.
Are you writing notes? How's that go?
Yeah, I mean, but everybody that you work with, they have a feel. You can feel it when you're going too long, or you can tell like the Costanza thing, just find the out and get out. And there's nothing worse than people that just keep and that keep looking for it. If you don't have the out, just get the out anyway. Just go, move on.
That's the benefit of having a co-host.
Regroup.
They'll jump in and save you, right?
Yeah.
I remember as being a kid, and I was doing a theater in school, in high school, and I had never performed in theater. Somebody convinced me to go out for it, and somehow, some way, I got the lead part.
What play was it?
It was called Witness for the Prosecution. It was an Agatha Christie.
That's a weird one for high school.
Weird. But
Yeah.
our drama teacher, she was very, very involved in community theater. So there was something probably very technical about that she wanted to teach us, that we wanted to learn. But I said, great, I got the lead part. Awesome. And so she said, well, it was something like 1,000 lines.
Oof, that's a lot.
I'd never done it. And so, we're at each other's houses and we're studying, and we thought we were all good to go, like 6 to 8 weeks. And opening night, I got the first line. I forgot it. And no one saved me.
You didn't have anybody on the side with the script holding it?
Nope.
That's rough. So how did you recover?
I said something. Something happened, but it felt like an eternity. It was probably only 5 or 6 seconds, but man, 5 or 6 seconds in a gymnasium full of people.
That felt like an hour, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of the benefit of working with somebody that you have a good relationship with that can save you in those moments. They know when something happens.
Well, and there's one thing that you made me think of, that there's not a person that does radio alive that hasn't had what we call the dead air dream. Or it's where, do you know what dead air is?
Tell us.
Okay, so dead air is when there's just nothing going over the radio. Something's gone wrong, bop, 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 something. Nowadays, it's a little less common because, everything's computerized. The songs are all on computer, everything else. But back in the day, when you had to load, when I started radio, I was still playing 45s, RPM records for Jack over there that probably doesn't know what that is.
He wasn't born.
He wasn't born yet.
No.
you have these dreams where there's silence, and either you can't get back into the studio. The first one I had was at the first little AM station I worked at in Tennessee. I had locked myself out of the building, and the record ended, and there was nothing. There was no computers back then or anything else. And I could not get in, and the panic is because there's nothing going over the radio for 30, 40, 50 minutes, whatever. And then you wake up because you're so the anxiety level is so great in your dream that it finally just slaps you in the face. Get up, and you're like, oh, thank God that was a dream.
Do you all talk about that in the industry?
Oh God, yes. Everybody has the dead air dreams, or you have situations. I knew a guy in Nashville that worked part-time for the rock station that I worked at. His name was Billy, and he left us to go work part-time at WSIX, the country station in town. It was over on Music Row at the time. And he was working a Sunday morning, and he walked outside to take a smoke, and the door clicked behind him. And he couldn't, it was going to end. And it was dead air. It was over, whatever he was playing. And he threw a chair through the lobby window to get in and the manager was like, all right, good job.
That's where your dream comes from. It actually happened to him.
Well, I'd had that dream way before that, but yeah. So I mean, they're all similar.
Yeah,
they're all.
Is it like dreaming of like the worst thing that could happen
for your job? Yeah. Exactly. Because your mind is so controlled by, especially even nowadays. It's like you have a deadline every 3 minutes, or if you're going to play back to 2 songs back to back every 6 minutes. So you're always looking at the clock. I could get up and walk out of here and go pee and be back in a minute.
You've got it programmed.
I mean, most people are like, I'm going to the bathroom. I look, I'll go, all right, I got 3 minutes. I got time to go to the bathroom and come. I'll come back. There'll still be a minute 15 left.
I can get lunch. I can get coffee.
Oh, yeah. You'd be amazed what you can do in a limited amount of time.
What do you love about what you do, what you've gotten to do for all these years?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the listener, I love the listeners. I love meeting them. Like I said, that's fun. And I always like to ask them what they do. I'm always interested in what other people do. And some of the most fascinating things for me is finding out jobs and places in Cincinnati that I never knew existed. And that's how you're going to find it, asking questions of them. When COVID was going on, we did this thing called the Big Dave Show virtual field trips, where I just had this idea. I was like, kids they might be back at school, but they're mostly are not. They're still remote. Let's go out and and make field trips. We'll go to these places that are still open and running and video it, and then come back and we'll invite teachers on a Zoom call to watch the video of where we went. We prepared. Enormously popular, by the way. It just was crazy how successful those was, because then they could give the link to their children at home or in their classroom, and then we'd have somebody from the place on. Like if we have Mark on from Pivot Realty there, and he's going to talk. You would be on at the end of it live with us when we showed the thing. And we went to all these places in Cincinnati that I just was like, I would have never known, like Gold Medal Products out in Evendale,
making popcorn machines and all sorts of stuff.
I was like, and then they're like, now every time I'm at a concession stand, wherever I am, I'm like, I wonder if that's probably Gold Medal. I had no idea that most of the, and that they own the rights to slushies.
I don't think I knew that. I think I should have, but I don't think I knew that.
Or not slushies, snow or whatever. They have a thing. They make those. They make the containers that the nacho cheese is in and the chips.
Yep.
I mean, they do all. If you go to a concession stand anywhere in America, and they were shipping a bunch over to China when we were there. There were automated popcorn machines. I was just like, wow. That's, but I never knew that was there. We did a field trip there. We went out to Dosher's where they make candy canes and watched them around Christmas. And my favorite was, and this wasn't really local, but it was up in Ada, Ohio, which is up 75 a little ways past around Lima, I think.
Past Dayton, yep.
Yeah, past Dayton for sure. The Wilson factory that's up there.
Where they make gloves and all that stuff.
They make the footballs and the guy, we did not go up there, but he used a GoPro, and they make all the balls for the Super Bowl. And it was fascinating to find. I mean, that's the stuff I love. Fascinating to find out, the night of the AFC and NFC championship games, as soon as they know who's winning, who won, they start making them. Because each team, I might be wrong on this number, gets 104 Super Bowl balls. And they get half of them almost they start making them that night. And they're all hand done. It's not an assembly line per se.
It's like a game ball. They can use it in the game.
Oh, yeah, it's what they use. No, these are the game balls. And he took us from start to finish of making – and one of the balls that year on the leather, the cowhide or whatever, on the inside he had written Big Dave, B105. And then so one of the Super Bowl balls that year had my name on the inside.
Maybe it was the game-winning ball,
It could have been, yeah. So but finding out things like that, that's super cool to me.
So you're just a curious guy.
Curious, but that's the best thing to be in our business. If you're not curious about other people, that means you're only thinking about yourself.
Where'd they teach you that?
I don't think you can be taught that. You're naturally curious or you're not.
So why, even though COVID went away or the pandemic, why'd you stop doing those if you loved them so much and there was such a reaction?
Because
resources.
Yeah, I mean, and also there wasn't a need for it anymore. Kids were going on field trips, I mean, that's something to think about. But you moved on to other things and just, I mean, it had a 2-year run. It was pretty good. We
took your exit.
We pretty much exhausted. The only ones I had a wish list that we didn't get into. We wanted Gorilla Glue, but some of them had pandemic restrictions, obviously. That was the main one. I wanted to go to Gorilla Glue because not a lot of people know that that's made here in Cincinnati. But that's a huge product. So.
Isn't it right up off Red Bank or something?
I think so.
So.
I never know. I never going to go.
Come
there.
on, man! You're in the media. Let's go.
I know.
So why do Tennessee guys think their whiskey is bourbon?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really I don't call it bourbon myself. I'm a Jack Daniel's guy. I drink whiskey. And a funny story about that is, growing up where I grew up, Murfreesboro is 30, 40 miles from Lynchburg where they make Jack Daniels. And I really had no choice because when I was a kid for like Sunday or Saturday, just, little drives with the parents, we'd go to Lynchburg sometimes and just tour the distillery and go in there and check it out. And so.
Got a taste for it early.
Now I'm Mr. Jack and Coke. I call them Tennessee cocktails.
Huh. Did you come up with that?
Yeah. Here, hang on.
Uh-oh.
You said to bring a gift for the show, so
if it's good enough, it goes up somewhere. Or something.
All right,
we might go in the hallway or something.
So this was made by our pals at Cincy Shirts. I'll give you the backstory on this. So Jesse Tack, who is now does the mornings and I'm in the afternoons, we flip flop. I sometimes on Fridays I would wear these black sweatpants to work, which they don't really want you to dress like that, but you couldn't really tell they were sweatpants. So I was like, I'm going to wear these sometimes until somebody says something, one of the bosses. Like, well, he joked about it on the air. He's like, I'm not like Big Dave wearing sweatpants every Friday until I get caught. And it was a joke. But, I mean, then the boss, our general manager, Mike, was joking with me. What's this about the sweatpants, everything? So the penance was for Jesse doing that. Listeners came up with a thing called Dressy Jesse. And I got to dress Jesse, who I'm more of a casual. This is me, a hoodie, and
you got a button up underneath.
Well, yeah, because I'm on camera. No, I do. This is pretty much the norm: Columbia shirt and the hoodie. But so I went to Costco and got him these 32 heat sweatpants. Oh no, the Puma sweatpants that I wear. I got the exact ones. I got him a pair of slides with long socks, which I'll sometimes just slide on like my son, who's 16 now, does, and a Costco zipper hoodie, and a ball cap. But I needed something else, so they make fun of me for I love to sit by my fire pit, smoke a cigar, and drink Tennessee cocktails, Jack and Cokes, out of a red Solo cup. This is my ideal night. I'm a very boring.
This is so stereotypical for a guy that's on a country music station.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So stereotypical.
So I'm good pals with Cincy shirts.
Josh
Darren-
Need's been in here.
Oh, Josh. Well, I know Josh pretty well, but I know Darren. I work
Yeah, those two
very
guys.
closely with Darren a lot.
They're awesome guys.
We do stuff with them at B105, and I do things for Beechwood. I help them with stuff over there, so where my kids go. So we came up with this that Jesse had to wear of me. I don't know. Get it on the there. And,
Here, give me one side of it, and we'll
yeah,
hold it up so the camera gets it.
So
here.
it's the Big Dave's B105 brand Tennessee cocktail. Cincy shirts logo there. So yeah,
you look like you're in the Tennessee Mafia there, man.
Oh, I know. It's kind of, you know what? And so this was a thing that they made for me, but they put it up on the website to sell. And
did you get some royalty
at the time? Well, a portion of each one sold went to Toys for Tots, our
awesome.
big charity we work with. But what shocked me was people started buying them. And I was like, wait a minute. And then listeners started sending me pictures. Hey, I got my Tennessee cocktail shirt.
Like on the beach or something or wherever?
Just at home. I was like, all right, well, this was just this past, around right before probably October, November. So, so I thought when you said bring a gift, I thought, well, that's perfect because
for a guy that's so nice, he sure is good at self-promotion. Isn't that awesome?
That's
the
great.
gift he brings is a picture of himself.
Heck yeah. And it fits right in because the whiskey theme, the motif in here seems to be whiskey, bourbon.
Yeah.
See, that's how you can tell I'm from Tennessee. I rarely say bourbon. I say whiskey. I don't know. I never knew that was a thing, but I guess it is according to you.
Not according to me, according to the Bourbon Trail.
The Bourbon Trail.
The internationally known Bourbon Trail.
And I'm not a big whiskey sipper. I mean, I'll do it. I prefer Coke Zero and just Jack Daniels.
Do you ever flavor it up like cherry or anything?
Not really, because you know what? When you put that in there, it gives it a kind of a little cherry taste, kind of sometimes. And a funny thing is not the cherry Coke, but cherry Pepsi. Every once in a while, I'll get one of those. It tastes kind of like bourbon sometimes to me. It has that weird. It's a weird.
Is that Pepsi's response to cocaine being in Coca-Cola back in the original recipe?
Maybe that was it. So yeah. So I'm Jack Daniels. I mean, the funny thing is the cigars.
Yeah. What's up with the cigar?
I mean, I love to have a cigar. I mean, my little fire pit, backyard oasis. I last year got a TV that I can bring out there, and neighbors come over and we watch, football games. Or now I do it. I don't like to smoke the cigars in my house. But I have that TV that's normally out by the fire pit. I sit in my garage and watch. Like the other night, I watched flip back and forth between UC and Houston and Xavier and Creighton. They were both on at the same time. Went through about 4 of those Tennessee cocktails and two or three cigars. So,
do you have to watch and participate in all these things, Cincy, to be able to engage for 4 hours daily, or does it just organically happen?
It just organically happens. I mean, heck, I've lived here since 1998, so I mean, where I grew up in Tennessee at the time was a pro sports wasteland. There was no pro sports. I mean, you had minor league, but
you had to get over to Knoxville for UT.
Well,
and all that
UT
stuff.
was kind of, but I mean, for pro sports, so I didn't really have any allegiance to. I mean, I did, but that was because as a kid, for some reason, as a child, I latched onto Baltimore.
That's weird. It would have been the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Reds, or something.
Well, the Reds were, because it was
Okay.
in the 70s. It was impossible not to be a fan of the Big Red Machine.
Yeah.
But my favorite American League team and overall team was the Baltimore Orioles. But then the Reds were my National League team.
Cal Ripken, was that the reason?
This was actually before Ripken. This would have been in the 70s when, I mean, the Orioles were
Something, weren't they?
They were dominant.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was, Brooks Robinson and people like that. God, I'm old. But anyway, so and then I liked the Baltimore Colts at the time. And at the time when I first started kind of, for some reason, gravitating towards Baltimore, and I've never even been there, by the way, the Baltimore Bullets were the NBA team there. They quickly went to the Washington Bullets, and now they're the Wizards, whatever. But
that's weird.
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah. So right when I was getting ready to right when I was about to come to Cincinnati, the Tennessee Titans, on my morning show in Nashville, we had done a lot of stuff like promoting and hyping the Titans were coming to Tennessee from Houston. And the Predators, Nashville NHL hockey team, was about to arrive too. So, but they weren't there yet. First season, the Titans were around. They played in Memphis, and then they went and played at Vanderbilt Stadium, and then they got their own stadium. But I was long up here by then. So it was very easy for me to become a Bengals fan. When I came
God, that was
here,
brutal.
I
those
worked for
times.
Y96, which was Young Country Y96, doing the morning show there. It was the sister station of B105, and they had 1160 Bob AM sports talk station. And Bob and B105 were the Bengals station at that time. So everything was about the Bengals. So I quickly it wasn't hard to become a Bengals fan, and I was already a Reds fan anyway, so it was easy.
What should you never do in a radio studio? Is there something on everybody's mind? If everybody has the dead air dream,
Yeah.
what's the thing when you walk through that door that you know not to do? You're like, please, every guest that would come in, you're like, please don't do that. Whether you tell them or not, you're like, please, they can't do that. Not that.
We don't have a lot of live guests. When you hear a guest, and that's true on any radio station for the most part, it's pre-recorded, because that all changed with the Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake,
Timberlake
halftime
thing.
show. That changed a lot of things, and everybody thinks I'm joking right now, and I'm really not. That was the fines that were levied down from the FCC on that, and that changed a lot. So.
Like, don't wear sweatpants.
Well, that's just gonna be. You know what? That could be our own little rule there at our work, the business casual thing. But I mean, is this really business casual? And I'm never without a
It
ball
is in
cap on.
2025.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
so there's not really. But you'd have if there was a
there's-
big country star that was coming to town, they might come on live, maybe, right? Does that happen?
Yeah, but you'd still record them.
Okay.
I think we have a delay you can run as well. But it's just as easy to record them and then make them sound better. I like to say, because there's a lot of So
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been under the impression nobody wants to listen to you say a whole lot.
So there you go. That might be the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. You want it to sound organic and natural, but also you don't want to hear somebody stumbling and stuttering over losing their train of thought, like I just did for a second.
Yeah.
That's.
But since we were talking about it, it seems like that's what we were talking about. So you're good.
Yeah. But the funny thing about the whole Janet Jackson thing is, in the radio before that time, especially on rock stations, there were songs that had really bad words in them that we played. I played in Nashville. You didn't think twice about like Pink Floyd's "Money," where he says the goody good BS, but he says the whole word. That would play on the radio. The Who are you? Who the are you? Nobody cared. After Janet Jackson, all that went away. It became who the are you? And don't give me that goody good. It just would. No, all that went away.
Was that around 2000?
Say 2002, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's been a long time.
Could you have seen the evolution? I was just off the phone with somebody on the business side before I got to come in here and have some fun and hang out with you, talking about a business I started 17 years ago, and I never could. I don't know why, and we know this. I never could have projected the evolution of the business 17 years later. And we're supposed to see it coming. We're supposed to be forward thinking and be and really evolve. But could you have seen the evolution of media, of podcasts, of I mean, it's wild, isn't it?
It's crazy to think. I always looked at like the delivery method of the music. Okay, this was all right. So when I was a kid, my older brother, who's 7 years older than me, he had 8 tracks, and I had 8 tracks, 8-track tapes. And then, you always had albums, but 8 tracks was the thing, other than albums. And then 8 tracks kind of went away, and cassettes came in. And then you're like, all right. And then cassettes kind of went out, and CDs came in. And then I was like, well, what can they possibly do next? Oh yeah, there's not even anything. It's just a file, So
MP3s.
Yeah, it just progresses, and radio's the same way. Detractors from radio and people have been singing or giving radio the death march since the 70s. There's always something that's going to beat radio. Satellite radio is going to beat, no, did not. This is going to be, no, I mean, not to diminish those things, but they don't. And the reason is radio's free. I mean, you could, in a market this size, you can't go 2 clicks without tuning in pretty strong to another FM station. And there's so many different choices there. So the free aspect's good. And plus, I always have thought, radio was a little bit ahead of its time as far as the technology went, because it's, it was wireless before wireless was a thing, if you think about it. So I don't think radio's going anywhere. Of course, it's taken its lumps like every other business has, but I mean, the numbers are still there. I mean, it's crazy. And it's to the point where I don't like to think about how many people are listening, because that can freak you out a little bit.
How many people listen to you on an average evening now? You've been doing this since October or November last year.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, it's funny because PM Drive has the largest pond to fish from. Mornings, especially after COVID, got scattered because of people working from home or in time. So in the afternoon, right now, I mean, the 4 to 5 o'clock hour is the big hour, I think, for listeners. And I try not to look at the numbers and ask about them, because then you chase them.
But what are they?
The last time I saw something, the 4 to 5 o'clock hour of my show, and this was just 25 to 54 adults, there was over 30,000. It was peaking at that.
That's a big responsibility to entertain folks.
It's a lot of people. I have said to like broadcasting students, and when I go to a college or a class and talk to them about it, the people that are wanting to do what I do, I say, okay, so let's look at it this way. If they ask you to go to a Cincinnati Reds game before the game and stand out on the second base with a microphone and address the crowd, you'd have an idea what you were going to do, right? You wouldn't just walk out there and wing it. Well, that's about the number of people that are listening to you right now. Know what you're going to do.
So it's best not to think about that in the moment, though, right?
Yeah, but be planned
to
be ready to go. You just don't, you don't want to wing it, especially, at least not too much.
Were you always going to be destined to end up on a country radio station?
Well, like I said, I was on rock. I mean, I definitely fit it here. I mean, I listen to these songs and they pretty much describe my childhood in Tennessee. We were out.
All Beyonce does now?
No, not Beyonce, but like any of the Luke Bryan, Florida Georgia Line, any of that stuff. I lived all that. I mean, and I think that's what makes me drawn to it too, is that, on Saturday nights we were out in a field off Sulphur Springs Road at the Party Tree, having parties as high schoolers. And everybody knew where the Party Tree was. And it was a dirt road to get to it off of a road. Like I said, how country is that? Sulphur Springs Road. But so doing that and having bonfires, I mean, I don't know that goes on as much around here as it did in a small town in Tennessee.
Did when I was growing up.
It did? Okay. So
we were in fields driving our trucks 60 miles an hour next to each other, and you hope something's not over the next. Oh, yeah. And drinking when we weren't supposed to be drinking and all the stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so it does, but I mean, this was every week. I lived it. So and country tapped into that. So that everybody it makes you have a fondness for that.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like these types of conversations, be sure to follow The Necessary Entrepreneur on your favorite platform so you never miss out on future content. Do you think that's when you actually execute at a high level, is when you're making listeners feel something? Because they called in talking about their Toby Keith stories.
Yeah.
You're talking about country music songs, what's going on currently, what you're giving up for Lent.
You do want to make them feel, our operations manager, Patty Marshall, she's great, and she has a brilliant mind when it comes to this stuff, and says, tell me something I don't know too. Entertain me, and tell me something I don't know. And, that she's saying that is what you should be looking at for the audience. So tell them something they don't know, make it entertaining. And, I always have said, we're not curing cancer in radio. Some people think they are. in not in our building, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But we might make somebody smile or happy on their way to work where they cure cancer. You know, I know that's a weird way to say it, but that's kind of what I always thought in my mind. If I could make them smile or happy, or sometimes sad. I do the good vibe stories, and I don't shy away from the ones that are a little bit sad. And I kind of always like give myself a high five, like one I did the other day about the little girl, the Cleveland Clinic that's waiting on a heart transplant. She's a tween. I think she was 11 or 12, and couldn't go to the daddy-daughter dance because she's waiting for a heart transplant. She's been in there 200 days. So the hospital staff made her room into a, streamers and lights, and then her dad was outside, surprised her with a corsage. I recorded that because I couldn't do it live. I knew I was going to start choking up because I have a daughter, and those daddy-daughter dances were some of the best memories. And I shared that too. That those are some of the greatest times ever, just because it wasn't necessarily a really fun night. It was just being there in the moment with your daughter. So, and I got a lot of emails from females mainly saying, I teared up. That made me cry thinking about that little girl and her dad. So,
did your family get lucky that you had the DNA of just being a nice guy? Like we can't be humble in the moment. We're just gonna talk real.
Mm-hmm.
Because you sit on a board for a children's home,
DCCH, yes.
right? And so you do a lot of good things there with that organization. You're sitting here talking about, discussing the situation with a heart transplant at Hitchin. You couldn't record live. That means you have emotion, you have feelings, you can connect to humans. Like, I've just talked to so many people, and you probably have too. You either were born with it, or there was an environment that nurtured you that created it.
Yeah.
Could have been both.
I think it was both. I mean, it's difficult to be around. I mean, everybody, for a child is a weakness for everybody. If something's bad happening to a child, obviously that gets everybody, especially, and even more so if you're a parent. And if you're a parent that's gone through things like that, it's even, and that's the case with me. And my daughter had a stroke right before she turned 5. So she was, your face tells it all. It was a very rare instance. I mean, and she's fine. She's a sophomore at Xavier now, and everything's fine. But I mean, that's a harrowing experience to go through. And she was in children's and everything else. And it was just a random thing that they said it's a good thing. We can't pinpoint why this happened because it means she's not
prone to
it happening again. So there's no condition that's caused this. It was just a thing. So yeah, very strange. So when children's stories come up like that, it always hits me a little hard.
Were you already that before that, or you think that moment moved you forward down that path?
I think your adulthood, as you progress through life, having children or just life in general, things make you feel a little different. Would Dave in his 20s at the rock station in Nashville read that same story? No, I wouldn't have. I would have read it, but it wouldn't have affected me that much. And if it had, I'd have probably been faking it. But I don't have to fake it now because I've lived through things like that and seen enough of that in my life. So, yeah.
DCCH, why'd you choose for that to be your thing?
In the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home, the thing is, I had done work with them for years. I get asked to MC a lot of things, and I don't mind doing it. I rarely turn people down unless I have another commitment to do something else. So they had me out. The first thing I did with them was they used to do a spring carnival out there, and was out there with that, and then slowly did some other things. The Swing in the Spring, I co-hosted that one year. The big fundraiser, I should say because now I'm part of the team. But so then soon I was on like the marketing committee, just helping them out with ideas because I have a lot of coming from radio, we're promotion driven, and you need people from all aspects to come into a table there. And then they asked me to be on the board, which was odd because I'm not Catholic. And but they said, you know what, they're making an exception now, and they asked me to be the first non-Catholic, and I was honored. I was like, yeah. And so we got our Swing in the Spring coming up in April, And I'm just happy to do whatever I can to help that organization. And what sealed it for me that I always wanted to help them out was, what I glanced over something too. What got me really super involved with them was one of the teachers or staff members reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've got a kid here that loves radio, and he loves you. He listens to you all the time, and every day he does a radio show that's not being broadcast, but he does like a mock radio show here at DCCH. And would you consider coming out and being a surprise guest one day?" So he was in Bob's office, who at the time was the president out there, doing his radio show, and they walked me in, and I got to be on his radio show with him. It wasn't being recorded or anything else. It was just, and
you made that kid's.
Well, yeah, it was fun. And then I did go out and have lunch with him one day. I mean, they try to limit, because these kids are in a situation where,
they try to limit outside influence and stuff, right?
Well, and you can't really. It was nothing that I could talk about at the time on the air or put up a picture on Facebook of me and this kid, because his parents might not know where he is.
And they're not allowed to.
He's been taken by the state.
Yeah.
So, and then he was gone. He got fostered out and adopted out, so that was great. And I never heard from him again. But I was out there for something else one day, and this is what solidified it for me. They brought in a kid who had just come out of what you can only imagine was the biggest nightmare situation. None of us can even fathom what some of these children go through there. And he was just sitting in this little den area by himself, and they told me they had just brought him in the night before, and he was playing a video game, and it was the most relaxed I've ever seen a child be. And I thought, you could tell whatever nightmare he was in, he had been taken out of, and he was somewhere safe, and you could tell by his body language he knew that. And I thought, man, this is a good organization to hitch your wagon to. So that's how it kind of came about.
It's a lot of good whys.
Yeah.
What's the grown-up Dave want to do still?
Oh, man, the grown-up Dave. Retire? No, I don't know. I mean, heck, I'm not that far away from it, but I don't really, I enjoy, I love what I do. So I don't.
Yeah, you still have a young heart and a young mind and energy.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like, what's the grown-up one want to do? Yeah.
You mean is there something else I'd like to do?
What's going to happen in the next iteration? Let's say you do this for another decade. Let's say you do.
Oh, God.
Wow.
No,
it's that tough?
No, I'm joking.
Jesus, the operations manager's going to have something to say to you today about more than those
You know what?
sweatpants.
It was a lot tougher doing the mornings and getting up at 3:15. This shift is a lot easier, and it's more conducive to somebody, because, I've done most of my life, I'd done morning radio, and it's grueling on you. And that's why I'm happy afternoons is, still got that big audience, and so. And now I sleep like a normal person. I always say morning radio is a young person's game, man, because, and especially with having kids during that time, and just, I was always tired. I'm trying to think of what else I want to do. I don't know. I mean,
maybe you're just that happy.
I'm happy and content. I mean, there's certain parts of America I'd still like to travel to, or go back to again. I mean, I know it's weird and I'm a nerd, but I'd like to see Mount Rushmore. I've never seen that. Even though my kids have. They went with their grandparents a couple of summers ago, and they've seen it, but I've never seen it. And I know it's kind of nerdy sounding, but to me, that's something that I'd just like to see in person. I'll probably be disappointed, because I always hear it's not as, it's just there, it's all whatever. And there's really nothing else to do around there. But that, and I don't know. I wouldn't mind going overseas and doing some traveling over there.
There's a lot of places overseas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's basically how I ended up in Cincinnati, was Japan. That's my story there, is in Nashville. I was on, like I said, I was on the morning show there, and it was the Winter Olympics in '98, Nagano. And Coca-Cola Radio was doing a thing where they were sending DJs from America over in flights. Like, Olympics are like, what, 3 or 4 weeks?
3 weeks, I think, yeah.
Yeah, 3 weeks. And so I was over there for a week. and doing my show live from Olympic Village in Nagano. They had radio studios set up and everything. Of course, I would do the show live from 9 to midnight, like say on a Tuesday, and it would be 6 to 9 Tuesday morning in Nashville, because that's how far apart, But while I was over there, I met Amanda Orlando, who does she's on Warm 98 now, but she was me, and it was my promotions director Cindy, and her co-host at the time on Y96 is where she was, the station I referenced earlier. Her and me and a few other people, we were kind of the non-radio people. I mean, we were radio people, but we weren't like that. Hey, all the time and stuff. And so we all kind of bonded and hung out a lot. And I got to know Amanda really well. And then part of the business is I lost my job in Nashville when I came, roughly shortly after I came back in like April.
So as part of the job, I was looking for another one.
Well, but I got a nice severance, and so I actually wrote a movie script while I was getting paid to do nothing. And then one day Amanda called me, and she's like, "Hey, my co-host has kind of gone AWOL up here. You want to come to Cincinnati and hang out with me on the radio for a few days?" I was like, "Sure." I'd never been to Cincinnati before, so I got my road atlas out. This was before GPS. My Mustang convertible, because this was before kids, that I could have a Mustang convertible. And I drove up to Cincinnati and did a couple of days with her. And they were like, "Hey, can you come back next week and hang out with her?" That was her bosses. Actually, Patty, that I referenced earlier. I'm like, "Sure." So I went back to Nashville. This was in August of 98, and got some more clothes, came back up. They put me up in a hotel. And the next time I went back to Nashville was a month and a half later, to get my stuff and move up here. So that was it. That's how I ended up here from because of Japan. So
is that a normal story of networking in the industry?
I doubt it. I mean, Japan coming into the equation, that's not so I mean, but that was the way it happened for me, was all because of that. And the ironic thing about Nashville is I found out later, and many years later, why I got let go. I had no idea why they let me go. However, that following April, on April Fool's Day, mind you, that Heritage rock station, like the WEBN of Nashville, switched to country. Everybody thought it was a April Fool's Day. It wasn't a joke. So they already knew that was coming. And I was told by somebody, a promotions director that came up, and we were eating Skyline one day. She was coming through town. She said, "They let you go because they knew that country switch was coming." I was like, "Oh yeah." And they're like, "Yeah." And they didn't think you could do country. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Let me show them.
Well, yeah. Well, I was like, we got a couple of ACM awards and CMA awards that might say different, but I don't know.
No chip on that shoulder, guys, around here.
No, I'm just joking. No, so, I mean, but I get it at the time. I mean, you're going to make a clean sweep and a clean break from it. So
how'd you handle it, that young guy? How'd you handle that?
It's different, I mean, but I mean, I was young and resilient and, whatever. I got some jobs. The funny thing is I almost didn't come here because I was being courted by the Nashville network, which is not even a thing anymore. But they wanted me to write. They had the show every night. Gary Chapman, I don't know if you remember that. He was married to Amy Grant.
Nashville Tonight, is that what it was called?
It was Nashville Tonight, yeah.
You musicians.
My grandparents used to watch
you
it.
Musicians,
yeah,
I
so
tell
Gary
you what.
would come out, and it was kind of like a late night show on the Nashville network. And
what would they do on it?
Just like a late night. He'd come out and do a monologue, have guests.
Play some music.
Might have a musical guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when I was on the air, sometimes we would catch Gary doing jokes we did in the morning show because all the writers listened to us. And so I got to know the writers. I didn't care. I thought it was whatever. And they were wanting me to come because the ratings were really sinking on that. And they were wanting me to be a writer and write the jokes for him. The one joke I caught him doing that I knew was it was the day that the guy that invented the margarita died. or it died the day before. So, and that morning,
Wasn't that Jimmy Buffett?
oh yeah, no, not Jimmy, but just the guy that actually invented it.
Yeah,
And,
not the guy who made him famous.
No. And so I made a joke. Really, it wasn't even one I wrote. It just came off cuff. I said, "Oh yeah, well I guess at the funeral home they'll have to line his coffin with salt, like the rim." And so I just threw that out there.
That's getting you like the headliner at like the big time
Well,
comedic place. Come on, Dave.
but that night, Gary Chapman did the
Used
same.
it.
He used the same joke. I mean, this was like a throwaway comment, and I was like, "Wait a minute." They added it up. They, like I said earlier, they tried to one up it when it was just a funny line, a goofy dad joke line.
And they shouldn't have. They should have just stuck with it.
They start and there's going to have the coffin lined with salt, and there's going to be umbrellas in it, and all that. All this no, and fruit garnishes. It's like, no. The funny thing is the coffin is lined with salt.
Take your exit.
Take your exit right there. So I didn't do that, and I'm thankful that I didn't.
So you were a writer at heart. If you were writing a script when you were laid off.
Yeah, I enjoy writing. I wrote the script just because I wanted to see if I could. It was something to see. And
what's that mean if you could? Because my response is, well, of course you could.
Well, I wanted to see if I could follow all the way through it and what it would be like to live in that world. And it was a horror script because at the time, like the really hip horror had made a comeback with the Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, but they weren't like your typical slasher movies. They were witty, and they had, so I wanted to try something like that. So that's kind of the avenue I went down with it. And it started with a stupid idea in my head about something that would be cool to see on a screen, and I just built around that.
Did you play music before you were in broadcasting, or did you pick that up after?
I played guitar, just learning to play it, and then I was in college playing it. I started playing, I think, in college, learning.
You know why everybody says they pick up a guitar in college?
Oh yeah. No, I wasn't. No, I was in a fraternity. I didn't need any help. No,
Full circle.
I was also president of the fraternity. So no. So yeah, I still love to play. I don't know, a lot of people know this. It's very difficult for me to play because I had a hand accident with a knife opening a box, and so I have nerve damage in my fretting hand. So it's
in your
hard.
whole hand.
It just mainly this finger, which is very. You play guitar?
No, I have one, but I don't
Okay.
play it. I'm not good.
So I can play, but I had a knife go. I can show the camera about that far. It was a brand new steak knife, went that far into my hand. It slipped as I was opening the box and just went down in there. It went through this finger. You can see a little horseshoe right there.
Yeah.
So it went through there and down into there. I pulled the knife out and drove myself down to St. Thomas in Nashville. It was about a quarter of a mile from my apartment on West End Avenue. And they sewed it up, and they said they brought in a plastic surgeon. They're like, we think we got it. I don't think you have any nerve damage, but I do. And there's nothing I can really do about it. I always show, when people ask me, I'm like, I can make a peace sign like this with this hand. With this hand, I can't really control that finger and get it to bend all the way down, which is a very important finger for playing the guitar. But I can still play, and I still enjoy playing, but
if it weren't for that, you would have headlined. Toby Keith would have been opening for you.
No, but the thing was, at the time I was playing it a lot more, and I was getting a lot better. And then for a while, I had to just stop. Obviously, I couldn't do anything for 3 or 4 months, but.
So we're far enough away from that. It's 2025. What really happened with the knife in the finger?
That was it. I wish it was something more glorious instead of something stupid that my dumb ass did, with a knife. But yeah, and they were brand new steak knives too, so they were super sharp.
Keeps getting better.
Yeah.
That was in the report. It was brand new. That's why it went so deep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it freaked me out. It's nothing like looking and seeing the tip of a knife going that far into your hand.
So is it a camouflage hat all the time? Because it matches the shirt. What's up with that?
No,
a man's hat says something about him, Dave.
This is a hat that every time I wear it, people are like, "Where can I get one of those?" I'm like, you know what? I got this. It's probably 15 years old. I've been on the air at B105 going on 20 years. Because when I started on the air, just at B105, my daughter wasn't even born yet. It was March I guess I'm coming up on 20 years this month.
Because if she's a sophomore in college,
well, she's going to be 20 on July 18th. So, so I'm probably right. Maybe today it could be. I'm not sure what day I started.
Y'all got to talk about this, man. 20-year anniversary is real.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes me feel like it's weird to me to, like, sometimes I will run into a kid. Well, they're not a kid anymore. That'll be like, "Hey, you came out to my class and read a book when I was in 3rd grade." And now, they're telling me this while they're drinking a beer at Riverbend.
Or have their kids sitting next to them.
Yeah. So that makes me.
What are the benefits from being on the air, from meeting these people? But what's the benefits? Do you get to meet the people? Do you get the
what by people do you mean? Like
just stars,
the stars?
and great?
I've met so many different stars. I mean, rarely get starstruck. I mean, I do still from time to time. Trying to think of the last time I got starstruck. Well, I met Reba right before the ACMs. We were all going up to be behind the stage for the actual broadcast at AT&T Stadium, and saw Reba. Got a selfie with her. That was cool. A lot of people think it's cool that I met Taylor Swift a couple of times.
Well, you're in the wrong studio for thinking that's cool.
Well, no, but a lot of people do.
We'll let them think that.
Yeah.
We won't talk more about that, so we don't get banned.
So that, and I don't know. I mean, I've never met Dolly Parton. I wish I had.
Dean just passed away.
Yeah, her husband. Yeah, that's so sad.
Yeah.
That, if you want to talk regrets, you want to hear Dave's biggest regret?
Yeah, I do. Are we going to cry about this?
No. All right, so. Well, there's a little backstory. I don't know how much time we got.
It's all on you. It's on your time. Where are we at?
Yeah, we got 15 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So in Nashville, and you like stories about famous, so I know you'll like this story.
I just like stories about people's lives, so let's go.
So when heavy metal and hair metal, all those bands, when grunge came in from Seattle, it pretty much wiped them out overnight. I mean, they
Nirvana, all these.
Nirvana came in, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and all that, and like bands like Poison and Motley Crue at the time, and Cinderella and all that. They just kind of went. They had to take the back seat and they went down fast. So Bret Michaels from Poison had moved to Nashville. All these millions of dollars, nothing to do with it. So Bret decided to write a movie, and he used to come on our show. We used to have him he'd just come in and hang out with us on the show just for fun. And he wrote this movie called Letter from Death Row, and he asked he shot it in Nashville. It was a major Hollywood production. Like I said, he had so much money he didn't know what to do with. So he asked me and my partner Duke to be in the movie, as he did a lot of other people in Nashville. So I played the strip club manager. It's Bret Michaels, remember? So he's an awesome guy, by the way, but it was about a guy in death row and his wife at the time, but his girlfriend at the time in real life, Christy, was starring in it. And I shot my scene at a strip club in downtown Nashville. And my partner was the strip club announcer. So my job was to walk in to the dressing room of the strippers and yell at them and get one of them on stage. So we shot this scene, and I'd never done anything like that. I'd never acted or anything. And I had to shoot all these different angles and sometimes just look right at the camera like I'm talking to a person. But, doing radio for so long had prepared me kind of for that. And I guess I was pretty good at it because the Hollywood director that Bret had hired came over and was like, "Hey, you're pretty natural at this." I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then Bret's publicist comes over and she goes, "Hey, I think I could get you some more acting jobs if you'd like it." And I was like, "Sure, why not? I mean, this is fun. I enjoy this. Making a few $100 down here, standing in a strip club all day, whatever." So she did. And one part she got me, they were supposed to be shooting this other movie in Nashville, and they needed somebody to play a deputy. And I went in and read for it, and they're like, "The part's yours." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then it fell apart. Like, I guess a lot of Hollywood movies, they never made it. However, she did come to me. She goes, "Hey, would you like to be in a Dolly Parton video?" And I'm like, "What's the details on it?" She goes, "They're going to shoot it overnight in Nashville from like 2 to 4 or 5 in the morning." And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to take the day off work because I was doing the morning show." That's an idiot for you right there. That is an idiot. I'm like, Why? To this day, I'm like, why? And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. I could have been in a Dolly Parton video.
You might have been Dolly's next call with first man falling off.
I doubt that very seriously. But yeah, that's one of my regrets right there. I'm like, why did I mean, I'm so stupid. Just take the day off and go.
Dave could be on a private jet leaving Lunkin right now, flying straight to Tennessee to be hanging out with
Shoot,
Dolly.
I could have some of that Dollywood money.
There's a lot of money down there. Do you think she is as quality as her brand says she is?
I think so. I think you don't last as long as she has and not be that true. Have you ever heard any like scuttlebutt about Dolly Parton not being a nice person?
Never.
I mean, everybody has those stories, and sometimes you dismiss them, but or you chalk it up to, oh well, they're a star, and they could. No, I've never heard one thing bad about Dolly.
And you
Parton.
would. You're in the spot where you would over 20 years.
Absolutely, and you've never heard anybody say utter, Because like when somebody tells me, oh, I met so and such and they were so rude or they weren't very nice, and I always like to say, well, I mean, everybody has bad days. I've never heard about Dolly Parton having a bad day. Maybe behind the scenes.
But we've never heard it.
Yeah, but you never heard about it.
And in these days, you'd hear about it.
Exactly. So I think she's 100. I mean, there's not really American icons. There's not that many left. And I think, Dolly Parton's definitely one. And like Clint Eastwood is definitely one. But I mean, when you start going away from that, I mean, name another one right now that you think when they pass away will absolutely devastate the country. Right now, the only two I can come up with are Dolly Parton and Clint Eastwood. I think that will make you stop and go, because, dude, I still remember watching TV with my mom one night when they broke in to tell us John Wayne had passed away. They interrupted whatever we were watching.
But we've got the Kardashians and Lady Gaga and Taylor. Come on, Big Dave.
But that's not going to – they really – do they – I mean, and that's not to diminish them, but do they hold a candle to what –
Why do you think? No, the answer is no.
I don't know. I think, I think that because of what you just mentioned, I've had this discussion with people before. I don't think there's that many movie stars left, and when I say movie star, not people that star in movies. I think Tom Cruise is a movie star for sure. But when you start going down, I mean, do you think of Ryan Gosling as a movie star?
Absolutely not.
You don't. I mean, but he is. But you know what I'm saying? It's a different from where we grew up. And I think it has to do with, do you really know that much about Tom Cruise outside? He's not on social media doing this stuff. All these other ones, I mean, they share every aspect of their life. So there's no mystery.
Yeah, they're trying to sell us lipstick brands and clothing brands and all this stuff.
And good for them. Hey, strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah. But it just doesn't turn them into an icon.
It's not as iconic as, I mean, that's
Do you think the mystery of not having full access is that? That's where you were going a little bit. Does that put them maybe in that? Yeah.
Yeah, not having full access. I mean, how old are you?
46.
46. So this is too young for you. When I was a kid.
For the record, I love to have old people come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm old.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid in the 70s, the biggest mystique was what does Kiss look like without their makeup? Nowadays, that wouldn't last at all. I mean, you would know immediately, but I mean, back in the 70s, there were magazines. There were, we've got a picture of one of them with a blank. It was magical, and things like that. Well, today, you couldn't do that. Think about even this to the 90s with The Sixth Sense. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, everybody that's watching this has seen that movie.
And if not, they should.
It couldn't happen today. Yeah. I don't think it could happen today. Someone would ruin that movie for you. You would never, and that came out in what, 99, 2000, in that short of a time, which is now 26 years, not really that short, quarter of a century, but look what we've come. I mean, you can't pull that off. You could not pull off that brilliant ending to that movie because knuckleheads would spoil it.
So when we've evolved in society where we're like, as we get older, we're like, we don't like the new ways. Sometimes we do that. So
don't be old man yelling at cloud, but yeah, I mean, I go back. I kind of like the days where I would listen to the radio with a cassette recorder, trying to record my favorite song, with a boombox to hit play and record when that new song came on that I wanted. I mean, I miss those days. A little bit. I think there's some magic to that. Nowadays, a kid wants to hear a song, they can hear it immediately on their phone. They don't even have. I mean, they don't even have to own it. They can just hear it. And there was some magic, I think, to that. To waiting all day for your favorite song to be on the radio. I love that.
We weren't distracted back then.
No, I mean, our parents had no idea where we were half the time, and you had to call landlines around. I mean, they had the phone tree going around, but I mean, now I know where my kids are all the time. Or at least when they were in high school and stuff.
Every time society moves in ways like this, it means there's always an opportunity for something, though.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the opportunity for the new to be the old again?
Well, I mean,
or the old to be the new.
I think some of the some of the younger generation craves the old. I mean, like cassettes are trying to make a comeback right now. Albums have come back, and albums sound better. I'm sorry. Through a record player, they just sound better.
I get yelled at when I call it a vinyl. Dave's like, it's an LP.
LP.
But he says vinyls.
Vinyls.
You guys are so
no.
hateful, I swear.
So, I mean, I think, and again, it's a fine line you have to watch out to be old man yells at cloud.
Or doesn't throw ball back over fence.
Yeah, you don't want to be that, but and remind nobody wants to sit around and listen to somebody tell them how the good old days were better than what you're in now.
We didn't want it. I didn't
want to hear it, and quite honestly, they're not. I mean, they're romanticized in our brains to think they were better, like sitting there. Yeah, but me sitting there waiting. There's something to that, but it was also a pain in the ass to have. I couldn't hear my song. Now I can just type
Give me a
it
song.
in.
It's on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
boom.
there. So yeah, there was something romantic about that, but also extremely inconvenient about that as well. So
it's turned us into highly efficient humans, and that causes a lot of anxiety at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult with the phones, and I mean, but I mean, everybody pretty much is guilty of just looking. I mean, I'll watch a TV show and look at my phone more than I'm looking at the screen.
It means it's not a TV show anymore, Dave.
What's that?
It's not a TV show
well,
anymore.
I'm streaming. Yeah. I don't really, yeah, I mean, I'm mainly streaming. But you know what I'm saying? It means you find yourself, the only time it really has my uninterrupted attention is if the Bengals are playing. And I'm watching a game, but mainly when the Bengals. I'm going to watch every play. Otherwise, if I'm watching another football game,
How'd that feel 3 years ago at that Super Bowl?
Oh, that was great. That was really great to be. I mean, I wish I'd have been there, but I wish we'd have won. And I think there's really good things on the horizon for this team. I mean, I don't know if we can handle them winning a Super Bowl, but I think we're going to have to come to terms with that pretty soon.
Why wouldn't we be able to handle it?
I just think the city's going to erupt. I mean, because of all, and it's not just going to be that the Bengals finally won. I mean, think about this. There's people that haven't seen the Reds win a World Series. I mean, 1990. So that's a long time, but even playoffs. I mean, and I think that's about to change for the Reds too.
You think a manager, one person changes it?
I think a manager changes the what do you want to call it?
Culture?
The culture of the clubhouse, which I've heard Terry Francona's already done. And I mean, they got a lot of good young players. And, Ellie De La Cruz is a bona fide superstar. It's a funny conversation I had with some of my buddies that work sports talk in town. Was asking them, because I always annoy them with sports questions when we get together. I was like, when it comes to Joe Burrow, I'm like, I honestly don't think this town has ever had a superstar like Joe Burrow that transcends outside of Cincinnati. And they're like, well, what about Chad? No, Chad Johnson, he was big. Pete Rose was big. But Joe Burrow is a celebrity and a football player. And when was the last time we had that?
Pete Rose, but if Pete Rose would have played in current times, it would be that.
Maybe, yeah,
right?
Yeah, maybe, but it's hard to tell. But Joe Burrow is I mean,
he is.
So
he's worldwide now.
Yeah,
he's showing up to Paris at fashion shows.
Exactly,
and stuff.
That's what I'm saying. So are we ready? I mean, we have that here, so I think we can handle a Super Bowl. But all the pent up from the Bearcats, the Musketeers, everybody that just never always seems to get right there and not get it here in our lifetime it could be a victory for all of those.
What an awesome city we have. Like, we don't want to let the word out like that happened to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The community's changing, but we have the arts, which are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Our traffic, I was in Tampa last week. Good gosh, man.
Oh, the traffic down there terrible.
It's like driving to New York City now. It doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
if it's 7:30 in the evening. Every highway, 75, 275, 4, all of them have. It's terrible, and I think it's because the influx of residents, man, with COVID and stuff. I mean, it's just spiked in the state.
Yeah.
And but we don't have traffic problems here. Only
Not
when there's
really.
construction and
Yeah,
something.
I mean,
right?
the cut in the hill is always going to be back. You expect it to be back.
But you can still get through it in 10 or 15 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, go out to L.A. and that's where you're going to. Yeah.
We can be
So-
anywhere inside this loop in 35 or 40 minutes.
That's a convenient thing too. I mean, yeah.
With an international airport,
exactly.
with sports teams,
Yeah.
with the arts, with parks.
And just think about this. I mean, it's a great area because I mean, if you want to go to something in Indianapolis, Columbus, Lexington, Louisville,
Everything within 2 hours.
I mean,
Nashville within 4.5.
yeah, exactly.
Charlotte, you can get there quick. Chicago, you're 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not,
That's why you've never left us.
I love it here. I really do. I mean, and it's funny because I sometimes do the math. I'm like, when will I hit that point where I've lived here longer than I lived in Tennessee? And it's coming up.
It's coming.
I mean, so
You're 20 years here.
98 is when I moved here. So I'm 20.
Were you born 1931?
Yeah, 32. No, 66. Smart guy. So yeah. So I am old though. It'd be like that's the thing. I can never not. Wait, you're that old? I'm like, yeah. Sorry.
And 12 more years though. You're 12 more years. You've been here longer than you were down there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And still laughing at fart jokes and things of that nature.
All the things.
I mean, yeah. That's why I was having fun with some buddies who text stupid stuff you see on the internet. It was some farting video, and I'm just like, when will I hit the age where I don't find this funny? But I hope
Hopefully never.
I hope I never do.
Yeah.
I mean,
We got to get you out of here, man. I think
All
it's
right.
11:28.
All right.
What do you do? Social media? Do you do all that stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge part of radio now. It's a huge part of everything. I mean, if you don't do it, you're doing a disservice to whatever career or job you're working at.
What about AI? We've got 2 minutes because we could record your sound here for 30
Oh, yeah.
seconds, and AI could.
AI is a big part. I mean, I hear you're hearing radio commercials right now that are AI. I mean, there's one, I'm not going to say the company, but I think that we're running where I listen to it and it's a very pleasant female voice, but it's perfect and it's too perfect. I mean, to be human is to have some flaws and imperfections in your everything.
You can still distinguish it though, but maybe to us it's indistinguishable.
Yeah, I don't know if you notice it, but I mean, I don't want to because they're a client.
But there's gonna be way more. There's gonna be a lot more of them.
But yeah, there's more of them. But I mean, there's no humanness to it, if that's a word to use.
We just made it.
Yeah, but what's that?
We just made it one.
We made it, but I mean,
No humanness. We just made it a word.
Oh yeah, we just made it one. Yeah. So, but AI is it's interesting.
You don't love it. You don't love it.
I haven't really delved into it as much. I mean, it can be handy. I have some tools and stuff at work that we can use. You can do it, but what I'm worried about is it going to? I like things to have the human element in it.
Yeah. It's not necessarily about you being supplanted and not having a job. It's about the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
You got it.
Brought us a gift with your picture on it.
I know. Well, you wanted the real thing. Here it is.
Huh. Red Solo
Where
Cup.
are we going to put it?
I don't know. We're going to start decorating the hall and having people sign stuff and all that. So we might frame it in the hall and say something about Big Dave. Those things are coming. When you walk down the hall to see the people who've been here.
Please don't waste a good frame on this.
Well, we wouldn't. It'll be one that's a throwaway. That's what it'll be.
All right.
Thank you, man. Hey, you're going to get some bourbon today.
Oh,
you were such a good guest.
Whoa.
Huh? What's up with that, right?
Well.
I showed it to him. We don't give these to everyone. This is good $65 worth of single barrel bourbon. So talk about all the good things. Boone County Distillery. I don't know if you're allowed to talk. Vanna. Dave White up in.
No, not Vanna. That's the Price is Right hand model. Yeah, there we go.
Oh Jesus, I'm glad you're still good on the radio.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man, those guys are local. They don't pay us any money. They're not a sponsor. But we bought the bourbon like anybody can. I like doing local stuff.
Yeah,
it still
absolutely.
means something, right?
It sure does. It absolutely does.
The bridge hurt a ton of people in northern Kentucky, a lot of businesses, so they were talking about it.
Let's have some no bridge incidences for a while.
We've had one every year. We had 75 before. But we're going to have a bridge incident for a long time.
Yeah.
You know that's going to be tough.
Yep. Oh, my gosh.
All right, man. So that'll be some cherry Pepsi.
No. I've got a lot of good bourbons that I've saved. This will go up. This will have a nice spot on it for special
when the
occasions.
Bengals win the Super Bowl.
Hey, there we go.
Cheers. Thanks for coming in, man.
You got it.
Okay.